All right, folks, and we're now back. I'm going to go ahead and start the movement phase for the Axis, and we are going to unleash this 1942 Axis summer offensive on the Eastern Front. So I am definitely excited. We've been waiting like an entire winter for this moment, so I am very much anticipating. I've been anticipating this moment. Hopefully, so have you. And we want this moment to be successful for the Axis, of course, in the context of this war game. And the reason why I say that is because, I would like to see the Axis pull off some sort of victory in our war game. That would be definitely an interesting what-if scenario to explore. But the real question is, how is it actually going to play out? The other thing to point out is that I like comparing this game to a historical scenario. And, of course, in the historical scenario, I would argue that they were in a similar situation. They really wanted this year to be the year that the Soviet Union was defeated once and for all. So a lot of, you could say a lot of eggs were being put in one basket. And if 1942 summer was to fail for whatever reason, the chances of the Third Reich actually achieving its, victory over Europe was now that much more limited. Why? Because 1941, we saw Operation Barbarossa essentially be that, attempt to deal with the Soviet Union once and for all. But that operation failed. So now as we roll into 1942, the idea is, well, let's just continue what we were doing last year, see if that will achieve the results that we're looking for. And also, Adolf Hitler had several issues with Operation Barbarossa. Him and his high chief of staff commanders, or I guess it would be generals, they had a lot of disagreements as to how to actually defeat the Soviet Union. And to be fair, the Wehrmacht was operating, not just the Wehrmacht, but the German High Command was operating in new territory with a new objective that it wasn't familiar with. They were mostly, the history of the Prussian army was mostly a nation that was, a nation and an army that was familiar with fighting near Germany, near the borders of Germany. Now they had successfully conquered all of the ambitions that their Prussian predecessors had wanted to do in basically 1939 and 1940 and 1941, they decided, let's direct our attention to the east and deal with the Bolshevik, problem essentially. And that was part of it too. There's a lot more to the story than that. But the point I'm trying to make here is that they never really had a clear strategic understanding of the conflict. Of course, us war gamers, we can come back, play the game with some hindsight 2020, and I've tried to make a few modifications to improve the German odds, namely trying to build up their ground forces so that they have overall more combat power or combat value for the 1942 campaign. Still, that doesn't mean that we actually can achieve our victory. The other fundamental question to ask is, how will we defeat the Soviet Union? And so that goes back to the issue that Adolf Hitler and his generals essentially disagreed upon, was how to defeat the Soviet Union. They didn't know. For the Battle of France, the objective was pretty obvious: defeat the French army, take Paris. But for the Soviet Union, it was more complicated, namely because the Red Army was a totally different beast compared to the French army. Number one, and number two, trying to get to Moscow, far more difficult to do in Russia than it was to take Paris in France. And so Adolf Hitler never actually had an interest in taking Moscow, or at least it wasn't his number one priority. He decided at some point in the war, some point during Operation Barbarossa, to prioritize an economic war with the Soviet Union. He also had a lot of political agendas as well, which contributed to the siege of Leningrad. But the symbolic birthplace of the communist revolution, essentially, or at least from what I understand, that may not actually be right. But the point I'm trying to make is that when Adolf Hitler eventually set his mind on an economic war with the Soviet Union, this further increased the value of Ukraine, right? Which, the history of the Ukraine is a territory that's been fought over time and time again, and World War II was no exception. In fact, World War II was probably the climax of that fighting for the Ukraine, although maybe not so much anymore. And so that was one clear industrial economic hub. It's also nicknamed the breadbasket of Europe, so it had a lot of agriculture. But there was also other targets as well. Moscow was an industrial hub, but it was further north. The other major target was Baku, here in the deep south of Russia, past the Caucasus Mountains. And in Baku, 10 production points, the city, there's a lot of industry there. And so the idea was that if at least one of these two areas, Moscow or Baku, would fall, it would cripple the Soviet Union. And frankly, that was probably a true statement. But the German army failed to take Moscow in 1941. They didn't try again in 1942. They decided, let's go for Baku in 1942. And they made progress. They were probably about halfway there, if you ask me. But they still had a long ways to go before they got to Baku. Can we get to Baku in this campaign? Well, that's one thing to determine. But I also want to point out that, those objectives were extremely ambitious. And I think an underlying question to ask as a war gamer, maybe what if alternative historian, someone who's just trying to explore the past, what other options do the Wehrmacht actually have so that, so that the military could be preserved, not at the cost of a grand strategy. And I think Adolf Hitler had the grand strategy in mind, but his army, his military just wasn't cut out for the job. So there's a lot of things to unpack here, but this campaign, I just hope to see more success than what we saw in 1941, or at least equal success, perhaps. At the very least, we can destroy the Red Army, but will that be enough? So that's that. Without further ado, let's actually start the game. And I'm going to start the log file, and let's find out. I'm very curious to know. So we're starting the month of June 1942. The other thing to point out is that I have very high expectations for the German army. I guess like the German High Command did historically, but understand that, we may not actually succeed. And so, what formula can we implement? What methodology can we implement? I mean, the general idea for Case Blue was to initially strike at Voronezh, take Voronezh, and then swing south to eventually take Stalingrad, and then from there, eventually keep pushing further south towards the Caucasus. What happened instead was that Adolf Hitler preemptively split his army group into two smaller army groups and tried to go for Stalingrad and the Caucasus simultaneously. And that's, that complicated the situation, but part of the reason why he did that was because he felt like his objectives were behind schedule. And so we can achieve a similar objective. I mean, we can still try to launch a, drive towards Voronezh and then push south. I know there's a really great board game out there called Case Blue, and it is probably like the most detailed war game that I think I've seen. Certainly one of them. And, I'm really curious. That's a game that I haven't played, but I looked at it when I was on BoardGameGeek.com, which is the website that I actually learned of this game. I just want to quickly pull it up because it is another war game that I've never played, but I may want to get into at some point in the future. But I know that the play time is extremely long. We can look at the map. I think this map is drawn to scale. There's the guy. He may be the guy who made the game. I'm not sure who this gentleman is. But you can see here that the map is of the southern hemisphere of the Soviet Union. There's the Sea of Azov. Here is the southern steppes. Stalingrad is up here. There's the Caucasus mountain range. And, you can look into this map and you'll see the hexes on this map. In fact, they're so small you can't even see them on this map. But they are very, very, very tiny. Okay? So, pretty much the same concept as this game, but just at a much smaller scale. I know this game would have a lot more attention to detail. Another really cool game. I mean, look at the pieces that this game has. Holy macaroni. They're using like these little cards instead of wooden blocks. But, I'm pretty sure this game breaks units down to like possibly even if not the divisional level, they may go further down to like regiments and even battalions. I'm not sure. But, again, just something to throw out there. But this is the kind of game that would probably simulate, the nature of what I'm talking about all these complicated movements and just the practical nature of seeing if a Operation Barbarossa, seeing if a, what am I trying to say? Not an Operation Barbarossa, but seeing if basically, if this game can answer those fundamental questions of can military operations like Operation Barbarossa or any other military operation actually achieve those geopolitical results. And I mean, that's just the nature of militaries, right? They're ultimately designed to achieve a political objective through military means, right? At least that's one of the components. But often the nature of a military doesn't always align with those political objectives. I think Operation Barbarossa is one of those cases where things got very messy, and ultimately those two goals, the success of the army and the success of the politics, were not clearly aligned. And that's part of the reason why I think Operation Barbarossa failed. On the other hand, if you look at like Operation Overlord, the operation was a lot more consistent with the political situation for the Western Allied powers, for say the United Nations, because their goal was clear: defeat Nazi Germany, liberate Europe from Nazi occupation. So their objectives were the military objectives seemed to align more closely with the military ones. Operation Barbarossa, though, and the other operations to follow, like Case Blue, very, 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 very complicated, if you ask me. I still don't have a full grasp as to all the nuances there, but there's a lot to unpack, and that's just more reading to do. Here's an interesting diagram: complexity and realism in war games. As the game becomes more complex, can you become realistic? And apparently, Case Blue hits the corner on the top right, both being complex and realistic. This is a very interesting diagram. This reminds me of a game theory diagram. That's a whole another aspect of like trying to model these scenarios and probability. But it definitely, I think, deserves some future research, because it's such a fascinating subject, number one, and number two, I mean, the outcomes and the consequences of all this is pretty significant, if you ask me. It definitely changed the nature of the world we live in today, for sure. So anyways, I'm definitely going down a rabbit hole here. Let's just try to focus on Case Blue as it is right now. And I have a number of ways to approach it. I can start with a powerful bang. I can focus on smaller objectives. How do I want to do it? And the area that I want to start focusing on is just recognizing, what am I up against? Am I up against a really thick enemy defensive line, or am I up against very light defenses that can be smashed on the first turn? And I'm leaning more towards the latter, right? But there's still a few caveats. Obviously, Vasilovgrad looks very well defended. The Soviets do have the Donets River line that are protecting these two units east of the Donets, right? Including the area of Kupiansk and then an area southeast of that. And then I have this large bulge here in the center. You could pretty much call it the Kursk bulge. It's slightly bigger than the Kursk bulge, because the Soviets still control Konotop and also Sumy, right? But the idea is pretty much the same. We can breach this bulge and then try to like chew down this bulge. Or do we want to try to achieve a breakthrough somewhere else, possibly do some sort of encirclement, right? And that is, I think these are like the fundamental questions that I'm trying to think about as I'm trying to set up this game. Also keep in mind that, like, I think a good tip for anyone who wants to like develop a good strategy. I'm not the best gamer, by the way, so but I do have a little bit of experience. Hopefully, I think I can definitely consider myself an experienced Eurofront player, but I also learned that trying to grab all the mechanics that I learned in playing a game like chess, right, really helps a lot to understand, like try to solve the puzzle, if you will. In fact, I can quickly show y'all. If I go on like something like leechess.com, which I do play occasionally, and then you go on leechess.com, and let's say there is they have the way to train, right? If I can find that, they give you daily puzzles, right? These daily puzzles, man, let me tell you, these daily puzzles were an incredible tool that I was able to do. Just help me focus on developing like the depth of thinking I need to do to like solve the puzzle. So like right now it's black's move, and I'm trying to check the king, right, the white king, but you can see that they have these powerful rooks and the queen that are covering the D1 square, right? Maybe you don't see that, but I see that, right? Some of you, I'm sure, definitely see this better than I do, right? I can use these little animations, but the idea, is the same. It's an algorithm fundamentally. You're just trying to find the optimal solution to this algorithm, basically. If we're trying to grab the same concept and apply it to this game, and this really applies to offensive operations, but it also applies to defensive operations as well. But I would argue that offensive operations, you have a greater showcase of this because why? I mean, hopefully, as you saw in Operation Barbarossa, you just have so many options as the attacker. You typically have more options as the attacker than you do as the defender, which is the reason why I prefer to attack than to defend. But defending can also be quite fun. So anyways, I have at least two things that I can think of right now. For example, I can deploy Army Group A, right? It's the smaller army group, it's the weaker army group, but I can try to use it to maybe do some short-range blitzes. I'm tempted to attack the river line. Why? Because it's the area that I expect the Soviets to defend the least, right? And so I'm assuming the Soviets are taking the river line defense for granted, and if we can have a successful breakthrough there, it's going to shatter the entire Soviet line. We actually could very easily encircle the Soviet pocket here at Voroshilov. Also, we can also potentially encircle the Soviet pocket north at Kursk. So that's one reason why I would want to attack there. Of course, the downside is that if this attack fails, I lose the advantage of surprise that I currently have. The Soviet Stavka can react, they can pull their units back, they can establish better defensive lines to counter any additional moves. Either way, the best case scenario is a stunning victory for the German army, a great breakthrough. I guess I'm doing a little bit of game theory right now, but the worst case scenario is that the Soviets do mobilize their army and they fall back to favorable defensive lines. I fail to destroy the Soviet army, but I will succeed at least forcing the Soviet player to make a move. And by forcing them to make a move, they're going to be spending their resources on HQs. And I also feel pretty confident that the Soviet army is still not strong enough to completely stop any future German attacks. So that's one option. The other pro of this option, I think, is that I still have a full army group HQ in reserve at full strength that I can then use for the next fortnight. So that's one scenario that I'm thinking of. Another one is to deploy Army Group South, this HQ, which has more range, meaning I'll be able to command a wider sector of the front. I'll be able to do more attacks across different sectors of the front. In fact, I can pretty much do the same thing that I was doing on this last turn, but I should be able to attack other areas as well. I can attack these northern areas and still have the combat support during the blitz phase. And because of that, I can attack Sumy, take Belgorod. I can achieve some, secondary objectives, still destroy and cripple the Soviet army in some notable ways, but keep the Soviet player on their toes, but not have it such that my attacks are a complete and total failure, even if the river crossing is where the main failure takes place, right? So there's that. Another thing to point out is, what actual firepower do I have available for the German army? Currently, Army Group South has 3 Panzer Corps at full strength. This is the tip of the spear, right? These are our main units. All the other German units are pretty much infantry. Yes, I do have these mech units that are going to provide the extra mobility, But the downside is that these units don't have any added firepower advantages while attacking. They work best for defending, not attacking. And so these units, they have extra mobility, but they only have single fire dice. So I had to keep that in mind, that if I'm going to try to go for all these objectives simultaneously, do I even have enough Panzer Corps to actually bring in that punch and firepower that I would want to actually destroy the Soviets in these sectors? My short answer right now is no. The Germans don't have enough panzers assembled. Had I had another panzer group assembled here, I would say that yes, maybe, but I currently do not. Although I do have this extra Panzer Corps. So technically I have 4. So maybe I have 1.5. I've been saying that, about 1.5 Panzer groups here. So that's another thing to consider. Other thing to keep in mind is the other momentum in other parts of the front. So for example, Army Group Center, I could try to attack. I still want to take Smolensk. I think achieving a victory there should have some advantage in the long term, especially if I can fortify it with this fortress unit. Likewise, I'm still trying to make progress with Army Group North, but keep in mind that on this month, I don't plan to use it for anything. Why? Because it's at level 2, not level 3. It's not at full strength. But I do have here at least 2 Panzer Corps that I can use. So I think what I should do is try to transfer as many units from Army Group North away from that sector. Try to get these units moving to support Army Group Center or Army Group South for just future momentum. I think I should try to use Army Group Center to put some pressure on Smolensk. And maybe Army Group Center can even support Army Group South's initial drive. But I know that come the second fortnight of this turn, after I blitz with Army Group South, I don't have much to do a second blitz, at least not on this turn. So that's the other thing to point out. So again, it's about just like weighing the pros and cons of all the different options. And I'll tell you now, all the options, as far as I can tell, they all seem to have different pros and different cons. So I think what I'm going to do is start this operation relatively slow. But when I mean slow, I'm going to do a blitz right now. But for probably the month of June and July, my momentum is going to be really slow because I'm going to really try to focus on Smolensk for the next couple months. I want to take Smolensk because once I take Smolensk, I'm also going to unlock more panzers. These panzer groups are waiting to be redeployed elsewhere. They're not the best units to fight in an attritional battle, although frankly this is the only attacking units the German army has. They're better suited for breakthrough operations. They're better suited at using their mobility to some good strategic advantage, right, or operational advantage. Smolensk, as you can tell here, the Soviets have so many more units built up. So my chances of breaking through at Smolensk seem slim. So that's why I think I'm going to maybe do a light attack on Smolensk, but try to get Soviet Stavka to respond mostly here in the north. In fact, maybe what I'll do is I won't even activate Army Group Center on this turn. I'll focus entirely on the south, get Stavka to be activated, and then proceed to do moves over here to put pressure on the Soviets. Maybe that will be the best course of action. No, I'm going to go ahead and activate Army Group Center as well. We're going to blitz with Army Group South. And then I'm also, I think I'm going to hold off on OKH. Although I'm pretty sure I want to activate it right now because I want that extra air support. I'm going to deploy it forward. And so now basically all the units that are within 3 command range of either Army Group Center or Army Group South are going to be activated, which pretty much is the entire front. I mean, for all sakes and purposes, it's the entire front. So let's get a move on. Let's try to focus on blitzing. And the fundamental question is, where do I want to concentrate my firepower the most? And I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to attack with my panzer groups somewhat spread thin. I'm not going to concentrate them too much. And the reason why is because I don't know which area is going to have the greatest chance of success. So I'm going to try to attack in a piecemeal fashion across the front. I have the downside of losing firepower, of course, but I'm hoping that we can compensate that with our air support. So I have 2 air support that I can use in the south, and that should be pretty good. So yeah, there's that. So I'm going to move Panzer Corps, Infantry Corps to those areas. I still have 2 more Panzer Corps. I'm going to send these 2 Panzer Corps. I think we're going to send 2 more, I guess, over here, right there. Just a whole line of Panzer Corps attacking against that wall. Then I'm also going to go ahead and now move up, I guess, the infantry. So I have a lot of infantry that I do want to move up. Let's also deploy Armor Group Center's HQ. I think we'll put it here, because then I can command this Romanian army as well that I probably want to deploy somewhere. I'm probably actually going to see if I can get the Romanian army to move to the north, more so than have it move to the south. I also have this extra Panzer Corps here, which I'm actually going to move right now. Try to move it into the proximity of Army Group South. That way we have extra Panzer groups, Panzer divisions available for the future operations. So there's that. I can tell you I'm already short on manpower already with the German army. It's already beginning. I'm already beginning to feel the effects, which is a big nuisance. In fact, let me cancel that. This Panzer group, or Panzer Corps rather, I'm going to actually move it. Have it attack Sumy. There we go. And then send that infantry there. I don't have a lot of infantry. Not as much as I had hoped, frankly. But we're just going to have to make do with what we have. And that's the key, really. It's just we got to make do with pretty much what we have. So I can quadruple stack there, but you can see that these battles already, I mean, I'm attacking with 2 Panzer divisions right there. Not a whole lot, right? But I decided, let me attack with that Panzer division because it has slightly extra firepower, and I can leave these mech groups as a reserve. In fact, they're kind of going to be our mobile reserve pretty much. And then, let's see, I can move another infantry here. And then I think the idea is if any place that I'm attacking with just infantry, I want to make sure I have at least 3 infantry because that's the equivalent of a German army. And hopefully our dice, hopefully if we just stock up enough infantry, it's enough to like make up for the fact that we're actually just short on a lot of unit types, quite frankly. We can attack with this Romanian unit over here. Yeah. And then I got 1 more infantry. Let's move that unit up. Or if I want, I could actually send it to Sumy. So I'm really just trying to stack up those units there. And then I have a little bit more infantry here in the south as well. Right? Now here's the problem with the southern situation here in Crimea. I have this unit in Perekop, right? This 8th Corps. If I leave it behind in Perekop, but if hypothetically the Soviets launch an amphibious invasion at Melitopol, which they can do in theory, they don't have the beachhead, but if they land there, they won't have supplies. But if they control this hex, well, actually, it would be a disputed hex. We would still have supplies. Never mind. But basically, I just want to be wary of the fact that if this unit does get pinned down, it may be put out of supplies if it has no unit protecting its rear guard. So that's something just to be wary of. That would be an incentive to unlock this 4th Romanian unit, right? Romanian armor, maybe the 2nd Hungarian army. I said armor, I meant armies, right? 4th Romanian army, 2nd Hungarian army. But I can only unlock them once I actually secure Sevastopol, which I don't think is happening anytime soon. So yeah, the idea is I'm just going to try to stock up a bit of a reserve. So I got these 2 mech units as a reserve. Got some infantry there as a reserve. I also have this HQ, right? You know, and I want that HQ as part of the breakthrough that I'm trying to pull off right now. I'm actually gonna change the order. I'm actually gonna pull back the 14th Panzer Corps from there, and I'm gonna pull back this 17th Infantry Corps. I'm gonna send just 2 infantry to Belgorod because I think it's just an easier move to do. And then I'm going to actually move my Panzer Corps, 14th Panzer Corps, there to Kupiansk. That's where I want to break through the most. So all my panzers are really trying to cross the river. So we'll see if it works. We'll see if it works. It may not. In which case, no problem. And then I just divert my momentum to the north and then try to pin down as many Soviet units as I can. But other than that, this guy, well, we want him there. Other than that, I've put 4 units at least on these major areas, which really is what counts. And then we can also do some movements with Army Group Center. I think the objective for Army Group Center is very clear, which is neutralize Smolensk as soon as possible. Army Group Center actually looks really strong, if you ask me, because we have, we had so many units concentrated there. So I think Army Group Center is doing extremely well as far as reserves and all that good stuff. I'm not really concerned about Army Group Center right now. And I think the idea I have is just, make sure I have like a bit of a mobile reserve. But the main focus is to make sure that I have enough units to, try to make progress here in Smolensk and also take Bryansk. Might as well go for Bryansk while I can. So yeah, 2 infantry there should be plenty to repulse the Soviet river assault. And then what else? I put an infantry there. I'm still attacking with 4 panzer. Maybe I want to attack with just 2 panzer. I'm going to attack with the 3 panzer corps. Hopefully our losses are not too high, because they very well could be. And that's what I want to be careful with, is not damaging my panzer corps. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the 9th Corps in there, pull out the 41st Panzer Corps, keep it as a reserve. Actually, no. We'll pull out a weaker one, the 56th. How about that? We'll pull that out. And then there's also Bryansk that's sitting right there, and I'm thinking we should attack Bryansk as well. So actually, let's move the 9th to Bryansk, and then this unit, that Panzer Corps that I had to the north, I guess I'll move it over here. This infantry can then move in there. So I'm attacking with 2 infantry. The reason why is because I don't know what I'm up against the Soviets. The Soviets probably have a lot more reinforcements. I'm expecting shock armies. So I figure let's make sure we have a nice strong infantry screen to absorb the hits. Simultaneously, we can also try to make a move on Bryansk, which I do think is probably in our interest to do, or maybe we don't. Maybe we just hold off. Maybe we hold off on the attack on Bryansk for now. Focus on Smolensk. Focus on one objective at a time. How about that? I think that seems to be somewhat more of a reasonable move. In fact, I think I'm actually going to pull back this Panzer Corps altogether. Yeah, we're actually going to pull out this Panzer Corps. 1, 2, 3, I guess, over there. I could send another Panzer Corps to attack Konotop, which would be interesting. Maybe that's what I want to do. I think that is what I want to do. We can, hold on. It's a lot of movement right now for the Germans, so do bear with me. But I think, yeah, we're going to send this panzer group over there. I just got to make sure that I'm not breaking the rules pertaining to sending units, across the Hexi limits. I don't want to break the Hexi limits, right? There we go. Okay. I could also send maybe 1 more infantry. I don't think I can, actually. Yeah, no, I've pretty much maxed it out. I think if we're going to attack Bryansk, I think it's actually probably best if I just attack with infantry and don't actually attack with really any other units, frankly. That's probably our best move, if I'm being real frank, is just attack with the infantry. Not much else. I can send 4 infantry there, which actually I think that's probably what I'm going to do. So I'm actually going to return this mech unit there, and then this infantry will cover the southern flank. Yeah. So hopefully that should do. Our northern flank, I would argue, it does feel a bit vulnerable right now, if I'm being completely honest. And that's because I've just stacked so much on Bryansk. Just a bunch of infantry. But this is a good time to experiment, see if how good the German infantry really are. You know, are they good enough to do the damage that we need them to do? So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, for all I know, attacking Bryansk is a fool's errand, and we're not going to succeed there. If the Soviets do break through east of Warsaw, we're definitely in deep trouble with Army Group Center, which is pretty obvious to me. So maybe I'll just put 3 units there. This Panzer Corps, I guess I'll just leave him right here for now. I wanted to send him more south, but it's probably better just staying there, cover the flank. And there we go. So that's all the movement we're doing. I also can do some strategic moves. Let's not forget about the strategic moves that I can do with OKH. In fact, I just realized we can change up what we just did a bit. Let me undo that. Yeah, let me undo that. Put that unit back. Here's a strategic move. Let's just move this unit here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Put it right there. Easy move. Another strategic move I wanted to do is actually pull out a Panzer Corps from Army Group North and actually try to move it somewhere else. Try to move it. Try to move it somewhere else. Pretty much. Question is where do I want to move in, right? And you know, I have a lot of supreme moves that I can do right now that are pretty much are not going to be spent because I'm just focusing on air power. That's why I activated it on this turn. So let's see. Maybe I think what I should do is maybe I got 2 panzer groups here. I think we should try to make an attack on Novgorod. Maybe we should consider attacking Leningrad itself. That would be another really valuable target to try to just go all out on Leningrad. You know, maybe I should consider doing that. If I decide to do that, then I don't want to actually stack up any more units than I currently have. Yeah, I don't know. Let's I'm going to move 1 German unit. Let's put it there. If I do decide to attack on Leningrad on the next turn. And then what else? I'm doing well on infantry. So I think what I'm going to do is I don't think I really want to transfer anything. Is that the only strategic move I'm really going to do on this turn? Jeez. I would think there would be better moves than that. Maybe I should cancel this attack on Bryansk and instead just try to get all these infantry units and then move them by rail to the south. That would give us a whole nother German army to use. And I'll tell you now, an extra German army sure would be handy. It sure would. Here in the south. So yeah, it really goes to show like where German priorities currently are, you know, where they currently reside in, right? I can tell you now, I would only be able to move 1 German unit by rail. I guess I'll go ahead and do it. Let's move this 4th unit by rail. So that's 1, 2. I don't think we controlled Bakhmut. No, 1, 2. I'm gonna have to go around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's a rail marking, railhead. Okay. I don't think I'm actually going to do anything to weaken Army Group North just yet. I don't think I want to do that. I think I want to still make progress. So I did two moves with Army Group, with OKH rather. Any other strategic moves that I can do? Not too many. Really not too many. I mean, that's it. That's all I can think of. Oh, I did 3 technically with this guy here as well. And any other adjustments? Do I want to rotate any units? You know, move some units around. Maybe I want to try a river crossing here. You know, try to launch a river assault here. I mean, that could possibly be not a bad move, right? And hopefully we can, I don't know, put some pressure on the Soviets. I guess I should, right? Might as well try doing something. So I have still 3 strategic moves. So let's just try a river assault. Might as well. So that's let me do 1, 2 like that. That's all I can do. Another river assault. And then I still have 1 more strategic move that I can move, right? For the German army. And the only one I see right now is maybe like I can move this Finnish unit. I can move it by rail if I want to. I don't think there's a need to at the present moment. Other than that, I mean, there really isn't much more for the Germans that I can do. No other real units available to move around, quite frankly. Unless there's another ground unit that I would want to move via rail. The only one I would see that would be a viable option is this mech corps. Have it move south. Have it move more south, right? But I think we're going to hold off for now. We're all launching a frick ton of attacks. Most of our attacks aren't even going to have air support, which is a complete and total bummer. But that's just the nature of our situation, frankly. Also, these 2 units here, I gotta say, you know, Veliki Luki feels safe for now. But truth is, it's pretty vulnerable. It's pretty vulnerable. I probably want some other unit in that vicinity, if at all possible, for any future, you know, operations. That's going to be the responsibility of Army Group Center to deal with that. But with 1 more Supreme move available, I don't know. This may be the first time that I actually throw out that movement altogether. And just like, you know, give it a hard pass. Or I can try to advance this unit more forward if I want. Again, it is hard to say. I could also pull back this 8th Corps, but I'm not sure what to do with it. I think it's fine where it's at, right? Yeah, unfortunately, no more German units to deploy. I mean, this Panzer Corps would do really well if I pulled it out, but I kind of want this Panzer group in position to assault Leningrad. But maybe I don't need it. I mean, I have this triple fire, you know, unit here. Maybe just that on 1 Panzer Corps is enough to take Leningrad, right? So there would be a very clear incentive there to pull back this mech group now rather than later, rather than wait. You know, try to pull it back right now. Now, if I did that, I want to, but I don't want to. I don't want to pull it out just yet, because hopefully we can take Leningrad very easily. But you know, Novgorod looks very heavily defended, right? Leningrad looks heavily defended. I want to have some good Panzer reserves. At least have 2 Panzer Corps to attack Novgorod and then 1 to attack Leningrad if I try to go for both objectives. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I think I'm just going to pass. There's really no need to do any other move unless there's an infantry unit that I'm not seeing that I would want to move via rail. Another unit that I'm not seeing that I probably would want to move via rail somewhere. I think this Romanian unit could probably be well placed at Petikop, quite frankly. But I guess I'll do that at a later turn. So no, that's it. That's all I'm going to do. I did 5 supreme moves with OKH. We can now mark our airstrikes, which I'm going to do. 2 airstrikes across this river crossings, where I expect the Soviets to have the least amount of defenses. And then we're also going to put an airstrike here at Smolensk. So 3 airstrikes altogether. Keep in mind, though, our airstrike is at double fire, not the triple fire it had the year before. So basically, our air power is has reduced its effectiveness by about 30%. So that's a big kind of setback in the effectiveness of the Luftwaffe. And that's just a consequence of having a overly stretched front line, pretty much. But also, I'll indicate these areas with river assaults. Boom. Okay, and that's going to be it. So a lot of battles going on. Maybe a bit too many, right? But hopefully it pays off. I also going to do some movements on the Western Front and in Mediterranean fronts. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to activate OKW right now, and I'm actually going to go ahead and transfer its 6 supreme moves to the Mediterranean front at half efficiency. And what I'm going to do is basically deploy as many Axis units as I can into Egypt. So we're officially going to invade Egypt. I'm going to move these 2 units right there, in range of Alexandria, but not too close. So that's already 2 supreme moves. The third one will be to move this HQ right there to Tobruk, where it can be built up at full cost efficiency. And then if I really want to, I can do one more supreme move with this Italian theater HQ. And I think I will. I'm going to do a C move. I'm going to move this unit here from Benghazi. We're going to move it to Tobruk as well, so that it's much closer to the front line. And as you can see, we're slowly but surely shifting our momentum of the Axis towards Egypt. In fact, come to think of it, I think that move had to be done. Actually, never mind. Yeah. All right, and that will be it for the Axis. And then I guess this OKW, I'm going to deactivate it. And I think we're going to transfer it back over to Berlin before I forget. And leave it there. That's where it belongs right now. So our defensive line still vulnerable to any British attacks, right? But the good news is that we have at least another HQ here at full strength, so I can blitz. And I'll be able to blitz these infantry, Panzer Corps, get these units on the move. Anywhere I can move them to the north, to Belgium. I can move them to Holland if I need to. I can keep them in France. I don't think the British are really able to respond. And also keep in mind that our intel is telling us that the British are under strength HQs, aka I can play as the other side, but we have slight intelligence that is telling us that the British here won't be able to launch an attack, not for a while. So we have some time, not for a while. We have some time on the Western Front before we got to worry about it again. And that's that. So without further ado, that's the movement phase. We're moving a frick ton of units. I mean, this movement to me is nearly as complex as Operation Barbarossa. It's being done on technically a wider front, because keep in mind, when we did Operation Barbarossa, I mean, we were doing it pretty much halfway through Poland, right? That was where most of the attacks were taking place. So the front here is just way more expansive. Consequently, our concentration has also been diminished, but I think we're well on our way. So I hope to have the success of Smolensk sooner rather than later, so that we can then, as soon as possible, get those units to transfer over to the Southern Front to further provide momentum. So I'm really not expecting Case Blue to pick up speed until maybe around August of 1942. And then that leaves me with August and September, 2 good months of good weather to really blitz hard. I think there's a good chance we can take Stalingrad. Good chance we can take Voronezh, although I think that's too far north or too far east, in my opinion. I'd really want to go for Maikop and also try to cross the Caucasus mountain range if we can. But Stalingrad is definitely a pretty good target right now. Or maybe The nice thing about this situation is that we could always shift our momentum to the north, and then try to just try to disrupt the Soviets as we try to make a push on Moscow. That's always another option that we have. So we have some strategic flexibility. So anyways, I think I've talked enough. I'm going to pretty much unhide the movement of all the units, almost all the units, except for, let me redo that. Unhide the movements of all the units except for the ones that are doing river assaults, right? And the reason why that is important is because, if we do get repulsed, it's good to know which direction we got repulsed from, although it doesn't really matter too much. But I just want all these units I just want to get rid of all the blue icons except for the ones that are attacking these river assaults, right? Okay, so let's start. We'll probably do just north to south. I'll start with the river assault here. Try to pin down some of the Soviets here. Soviets have a very strong defense. 5 Soviets, the equivalent of Soviet, or 5 Soviet formations that probably are like corps, I believe, Soviet corps. They could probably be Soviet divisions. I'm not exactly sure. I'd probably guess about 2 to 3 Soviet divisions per step. So you're looking at about maybe 10 Soviet divisions, probably on the order of 2 Soviet cavalry divisions, about a dozen Soviet divisions here against our 7 German infantry divisions, which are slightly larger. And we'll see what the Soviets do. They score 1 hit, but they achieve the repulse. Also, let's look at the dice roll for repulses for rivers. It's a 1 or a 2. So they scored a 2 and a 1 there. So they did repulse both units, and we also took a hit. So our attack there in the north effectively failed, which is a bummer. But not to worry. So that's that. Now we can do the battle here at Smolensk, unhide all the units. And the Soviets have a shock army, not as much as I expected, 2 infantry, and then 1 under strength, pretty much just 1 Soviet tank division. So the Soviets are pretty weak here. We, on the other hand, have 7 panzer divisions or motorized divisions. Not sure which ones exactly. And then 8 infantry divisions. Start with the airstrike. It scores a hit. Shock will take a hit. Soviets have 4 double fire and 6 single fire. They score 1 hit, which we'll put on our infantry. And then we'll roll the 7 double fire, and then followed by the 7 single fire. Wow. A lot of 6s I'm seeing. 2 hits by the by the German Panzer Corps, followed by another 6 hits by the German infantry. That's really impressive. So 6 hits altogether on the Soviets. That's not going to be good at all for the Soviets. In fact, all their armies are going to be at their breaking point. They're all at breaking point now. So that's really impressive. It means that I think our chances of taking Smolensk have gone up significantly. I mean, of course, the Soviets still can reinforce. We'll see how they respond accordingly. So that's that. Let's do the Battle of Bryansk while we're at it. Just the equivalent of a German army with 3 corps attacking 2 Soviet armies, the 5th and the 34th. And we've got the several corps. I'm not going to mention their names. You can see them there. But that's 11 German divisions versus what I would guess is about something on the order of probably 8 to 12 Soviet divisions. So we're looking at both sides having the same number of divisions, but the German divisions are larger, probably about a strength of 15,000 troops, give or take. Soviet divisions probably on the order of about 10,000, if assuming that they're full strength, which they probably weren't. So the Soviets, based off of that calculation, I would guess then the Soviets have about, give or take, maybe about 100,000 troops defending Bryansk, while we're attacking with probably about something about 120,000, 125,000 German troops. So we have a slight numerical advantage here, according to those ratios that I understand. And those ratios, that was after doing a bunch of research. All I did, by the way, was just count the total amount of steps that one side had, and then like I divided the total amount of divisions that they had by that number. You kind of get an average. And then, of course, I mean, depending on the war situation, those values would fluctuate. But it just gives you a rough estimate. This is about 100,000 versus 100,000, even though we have twice the amount of combat power, right? Technically more. We have 3 times the amount of combat power, but the defenders do have double fire. So, you know, their defensive advantages have been gained. This is actually a pretty, I wonder if this is the size of the Battle of this would be the Battle of Stalingrad. Maybe the Germans have more troops than I'm giving them credit, right? It would be 11 times 15, right? No, it would be more than that. It would be like 160,000 troops or so. 165,000 maybe. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe I'm underestimating the size of the German formations. I don't know. Anyways, let's do the dice roll. Soviets score. There it is. 4 double fire. Soviets just completely chew up the German attack. So if you thought Germans were going to get away scot-free with casualties in 1942, think again. Reroll 7 dice with single fire, scoring no hits. So the Soviets just completely, their defensive brilliance was literally like perfect. There's that. Oh, I want to keep that HQ activated. We have the battle here at Konotop with combat support. We also are attacking with the Panzer Corps, 38th Army there. It scores no hits. Panzer Corps will roll, scoring 1 hit, followed by the single fire of the infantry. I count 3 6s. This army is now eliminated. So the Soviets, though, just lost their first army in the summer campaign. Ouch. Next one, we've got the battle here of Sumy. I do think we have another Panzer Corps, don't we? We do, the 24th. We also have the 3rd Romanian Army supporting, which is pretty cool. 4th Army defends, no hits. Panzer Corps will roll, 1 hit, followed by the infantry. And they did not score the 2nd hit needed. So this unit is at Cadre. Still pretty bad. I mean, I'm pretty sure on the next turn we still have a blitz phase. It's going to be eliminated, presumably. Battle east of Sumy. Here we go. We have pretty strong Soviet defense. This time the Soviets have 3 Met Corps defending their 18th Army. And they score 2 hits there. On the 7th Corps, and also this 49th Mountain Corps, which eventually I want to move it further south, right? I was also hoping to transfer over these units far north from Murmansk, but I just never got around to doing it. And now I probably could use them to transfer them over to over here. It's going to be a lot easier though to move these units once I take Leningrad. That's for sure. And I think that's the prerequisite, is trying to take Leningrad. So that's that. What else? Germans get the roll. We have 2 panzer divisions. No hits. 9 single fire dice. They score 2 hits. Pretty good. All right. So the Soviets their strength does go down by 30%. Next battle, we have the battle at Belgorod. Just pretty much a German army attacking. Soviets have the same defense as they had east of Sumy at Belgorod. They score no hits this time. German infantry roll. They score 3 hits. Ouch. Soviets just took some pretty nasty hits. So it's 1, 2. Put the hit on the weaker units. So yeah, the 33rd infantry is at its breaking point. Already off to a pretty good start. Now let's do the most important battles here, which is these river assaults. Start with the battle at Kupiansk. And we'll start with the airstrike. Nice, 2 hits. That's what I'm talking about. 27th Army is at its breaking point. It does achieve a repulse, however. So I guess we'll just repulse the 48th Corps. I knew that I got rid of the movement, but yeah, it doesn't really matter. They're the same unit type. 14th Corps rolls, and it scores a hit. Excellent. And the Germans have achieved a breakthrough. That's exactly what we needed to catch the Soviet army off guard. We achieved a breakthrough somewhere along this front here, somewhere along the southern front pretty much. And then another river assault here, south of Kupiansk, southeast. Again, another German army, the 9th, Russian army, the 9th. Air power rolls, scoring another 2 hits. Nice. Luftwaffe did what it needed to do. Another repulse, very interesting. I'll go ahead and repulse the infantry this time. And then the Panzer Corps will roll, and they do not score a hit. Can you believe that? They did not score a hit. So that is a bummer, because then I could have actually really pinned down this group here at Vorshilograd. Fortunately, I did not break through there. So that's that. So we achieved a partial breakthrough, but just enough to hopefully get the Soviet army to shit its pants, pretty much. Now we can do the blitz phase. So I'll deactivate the other HQs that weren't blitzing. Army Group Center is deactivated. Okay, H will be deactivated. Keep in mind, this also means that Adolf Hitler, as according to my calculations, was at a moment there, very briefly, like at least the width of these hexes is about 100 kilometers. So right now, Adolf Hitler is about 100 kilometers away from the front line, which is pretty interesting. So anyways, Army Group South is going to do the blitz phase. Now I have two options. Do I either make a northern pincer or do I make a southern pincer? And I think since our objectives are here in the south, I vote for us pushing here in the south. But here's the caveat. If we cannot pin down Rostov, this entire Soviet pocket will in theory be able to escape, or at least part of the pocket will. So I'm going to actually go ahead and send this 14th Corps down to Kamenskoye and just secure that hex. I'm also going to send a German infantry, try to do another river assault at Rostov. So there is still a chance that we can cut off this giant Soviet pocket that you see here at Vorshilograd. But the chances of it happening, we'll see. I don't know. All comes down to the dice roll. But I can also then proceed to send a nice cluster of German units to Vorshilograd, which is exactly what I'm going to do. I could send 2 German corps that way. And then I think I'm also going to go ahead and I think 2 German corps should be enough to pin down this large group. It may not be enough. I don't know what the Soviets have. Ideally, I can send another mech corps and pin it down. And now we have slightly better numbers there. And then we can also withstand whatever Soviet counteroffensive the Soviets try to do. Plus, this mech corps will be really good, would work really well as a unit to stop the Soviets from any kind of, the repulse. They're going to have to deal with pursuit fire, is what I'm trying to say. This 48th Corps, though, that was sent back, I can move it forward. And so, yeah, let's try to figure out where I want to put it. I could also just go straight for Voronezh if I really want to. I'm not sure. Let's send this mech corps to Stary Ostol. Unfortunately, we should be able to wipe out these 2 Soviet formations here. But this northern pincer is not really doing much. Frankly, it's not really doing much. Not if we can't pin down Kursk. If we cannot pin down Kursk, these Soviet pockets should, in theory, be able to get away. But I'm going to still do another round of combat. So I feel like that northern pincer is kind of useless, frankly. Maybe instead I want to try to cross the Don River. Maybe put some pressure on Voronezh. Let's move up some more infantry as well. I can get this infantry marching. I can get this 30th marching over here as well. Probably want to put it in, I think, Mariupol, perhaps. Right? Probably put it there. This Panzer Corps, I think, you know what? I can pull it out. Because right now, technically, since we cleared out Kupiansk, Rososh was German controlled. So I can actually pull this unit out. It won't have any kind of pursuit fire for us to worry about. And then I can move it. 1, 2, 3. I can try to move it this way like that. No, the problem is that this ninth army should actually still be in supplies, come to think of it, because Rostov will still act as a supply base. Hold on, I'm actually send the unit back. I think Army Group A, though, we can the HQ we can kind of send it as part of this breakout. Yeah. No, I'm gonna do some adjustments. I'm gonna send this 4th Corps actually to the north, so that we have at least one full strength unit that's attacking there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and pull out a German infantry corps, try to get him marching to the east. Let's try to get as many German units marching to the east, basically. Also send this Panzer Corps, get him marching over there as well. And then what else? What other units do I want to move up? Pulling that unit out. This unit here, it's 48th. I could try to send it off to some sort of attack position, which is what I want to do, definitely. By the way, my supply path right now seems pretty good. It really, my supply lines are a bit tenuous, but if we can clear out this area here, it will improve our supply lines significantly, actually. The only problem I see is that I don't really have another unit that could support the 40th Corps. I have no infantry right now that could actually support that attack, unless I don't want to attack this pocket here. And that's a gamble, if you ask me. It is quite a gamble. The other thing to point out is that units that are disengaging cannot re-engage on the same turn. So, yeah, I kind of need to neutralize this 9th Army, though, completely if I want to have a real chance of achieving a success. I think we should send the mech unit to attack, right? Because it's cheaper, and I don't want to lose this panzer group just yet. So yeah. We have 2 panzer armies that are basically breaking through, and that's it. All the other infantry that we have are right now being committed to trying to pin down these much larger Soviet formations. And so I don't have much as far as infantry divisions that are participating in the breakthrough phase. And that's just how it is, right? I mean, for these breakthrough operations. But the good news is that I can keep marching to the north. I think the only other adjustment I would want to do is probably send a Panzer Corps right there to Belgorod and see if I can use it to wipe out that Soviet cluster there. The only problem I see is that this northern flank now is just a bit more vulnerable. And like I say, I could use somewhat more units, but I just don't have many. I'm also worried if I send all the infantry to east to Vorshilovgrad that they're just going to get completely chewed up. Chances are they probably will. So you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and send the 23rd Infantry Corps there to the north instead. And this panzer group, I mean, if I could send it to Stalingrad, I would, right? In fact, maybe where I should put it, 1, 2, 3. I want to put it somewhere that would disrupt the ability for the Soviet army to move reinforcements via rail to Stalingrad. The only place to put it would be right up here, in which case the Soviets would have to go all the way around before they can get reinforcements to move via rail. Because the way it currently stands, we don't have an issue at all. And I think there's an incentive for me to actually. Try to go for Voronezh. In fact, if I pin down Voronezh, that might be the better option. Decisions. In fact, it's theoretically possible that I may be able to even cut off Voronezh from its supplies. It's hard to do, but not impossible. Again, a lot of objectives that we're trying to go for right now. I think the wiser choice would be to not cross the Don River and instead get this Panzer Corps somewhere else. I think we can hold off on Voronezh for now. I'm not really seeing a clear incentive to go all out on Voronezh just yet. I'm not seeing that incentive right now. I'd rather keep my formation tight and try to focus my momentum to the south. I think Army Group A would be better off if I focused it somewhere to the south. No, I think we'll leave it for what it is for now. It's not the best setup, but it's definitely far from the worst. Definitely far from the worst. I could also pull out one more Panzer Corps, but I'm actually going to use it to attack. Yeah. All right, so let's airstrike. Let's put the airstrike. Where am I expecting greater resistance? You know, how many troops do we have here? We have 12 and 12. Let's put the airstrike here. Or I could also deactivate this HQ and then have it march. No, we'll keep attacking. And that's it. That's all we have for. That's it. That's all we have for Armor Group South operations right now. Here in essentially now crossing the Russo-Ukraine border. So let's do it. Let's do a second round of combat with whatever combat support we have available. I hope this 40th Army is in a good spot. We'll see. So anyways, let's start here. Well, actually, let's continue the Battle of Smolensk. I say we do another round. This will be unsupported combat, but we still have a lot of firepower. And hopefully we can wipe out a few of these Soviet armies. So the Soviets have 4 dice, 2 double fire, 2 single fire. They score 1 hit against our infantry. Panzer divisions will roll, followed by the infantry. We score 2 hits, just enough to wipe out a Soviet army. Nice. Eliminated. All right, so that's it for Smolensk. We will not continue our attack on Bryansk. Forget about that. Attack Sumy, 4th Army there. We do have combat support. And we scored no hits. What a bummer. 4th Army still survives. We rolled 12 dice. Not a single one scored the single fire hits, which is a bummer. Anyways, but still not the worst. Not the worst. Not great, not terrible. Airstrike here north of Kharkov. Boom. Air power. The Luftwaffe has done a great job scoring 2 more hits on the Soviets. And now, hopefully my audio has been good throughout the video. I think it's been pretty good, right? Soviets will roll. They have 1 double fire, 1 single fire, no hits. We'll start with the 2 German divisions. They score a hit, followed by the infantry. I count 10 dice. And they only scored 1 hit. So we did not completely eliminate the Soviet formation there, which is a bummer. But no problem. Still got the next battle of Belgorod. Essentially, this is like a battle of Kursk in a way. Except this time, the front line is far less concentrated. The Soviets have a far thinner defensive line than they did in 1943 historically. We're going to do this battle here at Belgorod. Soviets roll 3 dice. The first 2 were double fire, no hits. 4 double fire for the Panzer Corps, followed by 8 single fire. Oof, 3 hits I count. 2 from the Panzer Corps, 1 from an infantry corps, and we do wipe the Soviets out of Belgorod. So that was really nice. Very nicely done. Overall, we've definitely poked a nice good hole in the Soviet front. Not to mention, we're also wiping out a lot of Soviet units. In fact, we've already on this turn alone, we've neutralized 5 Soviet armies and 1 Mech Corps group, with another 2 Soviet armies being battered. Altogether, the Soviets have lost about 7 Soviet armies so far, probably the equivalent of about 700,000 troops. We're also going to do this here battle against the 9th Army. Of course, it scores a hit. This is why I pulled out the Panzer Corps. The Mech Corps takes a hit. They roll. They don't score a hit. So this unit is still alive. And then we're also going to do this here battle of Voroshilovgrad. Now, the Soviets have a large buildup here. We're only attacking with 8 divisions. So we'll see if our formation is big enough to bite down on this large Soviet pocket. We're seeing a lot of Soviet formations. 1 shock army, 1 cavalry corps, 2 Soviet armies, 3 armies altogether. And we'll roll the dice, starting with the 3 double fire from the shock army, followed by 8 single fire dice. And then I'll just do 2 4s. So they score 2 hits. Just enough for us to not sustain heavy casualties. We don't have combat support, though. It's out of range of Army Group South. So we'll roll 2 3s. Still enough to score at least 1 hit with 2 dice to counter the double fire. And then the last battle that we have right now is the battle here at Rostov with his river assault. If we succeed here, this group is going to be pinned down, and that's no bueno for the Soviets. They have their HQ there, and they have the 13th Army. And the 13th Army does succeed at repulsing. In fact, scores 2 hits against the German attack. So the Soviets did a great repulse there. And so the plot thickens, is what I'm trying to say. So we'll activate Army Group South, and that will sum up the German turn for this fortnight. And no other activity on the other fronts. So we'll now switch over to the second fortnight. And, well, actually, before I do, let me actually do the Soviet response. Allied response in general. And let's do that. Let's start with the British before I forget. Let's start with their response. We're not going to do another amphibious invasion, that's for sure, not for a while. But I am going to go ahead and activate this Supreme HQ. It has 4 Supreme moves. I'm going to transfer over those Supreme moves to the Mediterranean front. So those are going to be reduced to 2 Supreme moves. And then I'm going to basically, I'm going to do 2 Supreme moves. I'm going to move this 30th British Corps from South Africa, move it across the Indian Ocean. That's 1 Supreme move, 1 sea move, and then do the other one across the Red Sea, right? And it's actually going to arrive all the way over here. You know, it's going to arrive in the Suez Canal right there. Boom. All right, so that's the movement. 2 Supreme moves, just enough to move that unit. Do I want to move this guy anywhere else? So I've expended all the Supreme moves for this HQ. I think we're good. I'm going to deactivate it there. I'm going to leave it there in Bristol because I may want to move it to Morocco, Algeria if I decide to invade there. But then over here, no more moves I want to do with the British. Actually, that might not be true. I think what I'm actually going to go ahead and do, I got to figure out the British defense right now. Alexandria is looking pretty vulnerable. You know, in theory, you know, the Axis could pull off some sort of sneaky move, maybe put us out of supplies. You know, they might be able to, well, actually, I know that because the movement will be reduced, you know, they actually probably won't be able to cross the Nile River, not on this turn. No, I don't think they'll be able to cross on this turn. I guess the Africa Corps could have been more aggressive and moved on into Mersa Matruh. But I could try to activate this HQ. I think I'm going to do it on the next turn. And just try to deploy all these British units. I have 5 British ground units. Try to get them set up in some good offensive position here. Most of them are under strength right now. They're at level 1. So I don't want to deploy them just yet. I want to deploy them in such a way that I know they'll get production. They'll get some reinforcements as soon as possible. So we'll pass for the British for now. But then we have a lot of things to do for the Soviets, right? By the way, the Soviet pocket here is still in supplies because its rail supply right now is coming from Rostov. It can go all the way around through Stalingrad, all the way around, go to Moscow, a lot of routes that the Soviets have to keep their units in supplies. But the situation in the Central Front for the Soviets is looking pretty bad, especially now that there's this gaping hole here in the front. And so I think it's clear that the Soviets have to pull out. In fact, the situation is so tenuous for the Soviets that I may even abandon Bryansk. I don't have a very strong reserve. We'll still try to hold on to Smolensk a bit longer, but this whole southern flank is looking really bad, right? Looking really, really, really bad for the Soviets. So I'm probably going to activate the Western HQ, or maybe I can just use Stavka. Maybe Stavka would be enough. My intuition is telling me we're going to have to activate Stavka. Probably definitely this Ukrainian HQ. Probably even, I'm actually even going to blitz this HQ, I think, so that I can just completely pull all my units out. Because right now I have a hex side limit of two units that can move per hex. And so, yeah, I think we're going to blitz here. In which case, I'm definitely activating Stavka because I need to move more HQs around. And then we'll go ahead and activate the Western HQ as well. And then I'll just try to fix this problem as best we can. So we'll start with the Western HQ. I'm going to pour in whatever reserve units I have left. 2 units in, 2 units out is the policy. And try to get as many units as I can out of there. I'm actually going to put this armored core in there. No, I can't, right? 2 units in, 2 units out. So just put in 2 units in. I can't really pull any other units out. So no, that's as good as we're going to get for the Soviets. I'm pretty sure we cannot hold on to Smolensk much longer. So actually what I'm going to do... Hold on, let me start that sequence again. Yeah, we're going to put in this unit that's at full strength in there for sure. I can put in 2 more units. That's going to leave 6 units there. I can only stack up to 4. So what unit do I want to put in there is the real question. I think it only makes sense to put in the infantry because they can absorb more hits. And that's really what we need right now. It's just to absorb more hits, as many hits as we can. And then I can pull 1 unit out, right? Which I'll go ahead and it'll be this infantry unit, like so. Actually, what I'll do is pull it out this way. And then I'm going to put 1 more unit in there, right? Let's put this guy in there. And then, we just keep holding the line as best we can. Bryansk is also looking pretty good for now, but it could look a whole lot better. The main goal right now is just to pull out as many units here. I think, do I want to abandon Kursk, or maybe I want to hold the line at Kursk? It's hard to say. I think we should just abandon this whole sector and just get our units to fall back to a much better defensive position. And I'm thinking that the best defensive position right now, it's probably going to be a line. We'll move this cavalry group over there. Yeah, get our infantry there. Get this mech unit to fall back there. Let's actually deploy this HQ over here so that I can control the Voronezh unit as well. Put him here, there. Yeah. Yeah, no, the situation is looking pretty bad for the Soviets, I have to say. Let's try to pull back this mech group. I'm not sure where to put it. Oh, you know what? We're gonna actually move this army into Voronezh. Much better. Get this guy to move over there. Now we do still have a bit of a reserve. but it's not ideal. Far from it. Far from it. In fact, our situation here in the southern flank of Moscow is actually looking pretty vulnerable. It's looking pretty vulnerable, quite frankly. And I may unfortunately have to deploy these Soviet shock armies, or excuse me, tank armies, which I was trying to avoid. But I just don't see any other reserve available for the Soviets. I really don't. The only other place is to hold on to Smolensk, and it's a very, very tenuous defensive line, frankly. So yeah, not a great situation, as I've said, for the Soviets. Let's pull back this tank army, though. I think we're going to put the tank armies, like, I guess right there. Get this unit there. I'm going to try to do something like that, I guess. This is pretty good, except for the fact that I still have a gaping hole in my defensive line, which is right there. Given that this unit, if this unit doesn't actually successfully withdraw, it's going to get totally wrecked. So actually, we're going to move this unit north. That's it. I got to move one more unit there, though, to cover the flank. But right now, Voronezh is looking really vulnerable. I have it fortified, but if the Germans decide to try to encircle it, we're going to be in trouble. Let's actually move this corps to Tambov right there instead. And then what else? What other units do I have? I have this mech corps here as well. 1, 2, 3. I guess we're going to have to put it there. And that leaves me with this mech group here. Put it there. So yeah, that seems pretty reasonable move. Might as well get this infantry to retreat. Yeah, might as well get it to retreat. Although its chances of survival are still pretty slim, but yeah, we'll try to get a retreat. In fact, I think we'll get this unit. I think we're gonna do something like that. It's a very tenuous defensive line. We don't have that many armies, but it's all we have. It's what we have to work with. And then the only thing that's stopping the Germans from breaking out of Smolensk is our defense of Smolensk. As soon as they break through, we're going to be in some doo-doo there. Any other moves for the Western HQ? We'll start doing some Stavka moves, and it's clear where I want to move my reserves. Yeah, it's pretty clear as day. I think what I'm going to go ahead and do these two units, I was going to try to send them over to Leningrad, but no. Let's get these units instead to cover some better positions. Let's get this guy to move by rail to Ryazan there. And then, where else? Where else do I want to put another Soviet unit? You know, I just want to put the infantry somewhere, have it hold the line pretty much. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a cadre strength unit. I think I might just put it there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just act as like some sort of second defensive line if possible. Well, it's completely under strength, so I don't think I want to put it there. Let's instead put it at oddly enough, I think what I'm going to have to do is actually keep in mind I have to also get another unit to move to Stalingrad. Well, no, we're not going to worry about that for now. I'm going to let the Ukrainian front there figure it out. So let's yeah, it's just hard to say where I want to put it. Let's get this unit to stay there instead. Second, like, defensive echelon. This unit here, I just don't know where the heck I want to put it. Our defense, though, here of Leningrad is pretty good. It's okay. Definitely could be better. But I did one strategic move so far. I have 5 more that I can do. Keep that in mind. I think the next one is going to be to move an HQ to Stalingrad. Let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we'll do another supreme move. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We're going to put it right there. I think that's where it needs to be. And so that cost me 2 supreme moves. So that was 2 supreme moves. We did another one there. And then I also want to, so I have 3 more supreme moves that I can do. What about here in the north, right? I mean, it seems pretty clear to me that, you know, our defense of the north is looking pretty good. I propose that we move the 7th Army to Volkov. Just leave it there. Hopefully the 52nd can cover that northern flank. Hopefully. Against whatever the Finnish are building up there. We'll see. There's not a guarantee that we can even defend there, but at the very least we can have another army to reinforce or maybe I pull back to 52nd Army instead of letting it defend there. Again, hard to say. That would be another supreme move. That leaves me with 2 more. Another one would be to move this HQ to, maybe I move it up there to Archangel. How about that? That leaves me with 1 more supreme move left. And I don't know what would be the other one. Well, the last one is clearly moving this 22nd Army. So, you know, I think something I'm forgetting about as part of the Soviet strategy is actually defending Moscow. So let's put this HQ here, or this unit, not an HQ, excuse me, this unit there. So that would be, I think, 6 supreme moves, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, yeah. So that's pretty decent. We're still holding in the center, but it's clear to me that I've underestimated the German attack, and right now our defense, you know, the southern area is very vulnerable to a German drive. If the Germans want to exploit it, they certainly can, and they probably will, right? So that's something to keep in mind. But let's continue doing a few more turns. Let's use this Ukrainian HQ. We're going to do a blitz, and we're going to do basically a retreat blitz of sorts. So the first problem I'm seeing, oh, you know what? I just realized we can move this some units here by rail. You know what? Let's do that. So I'm actually going to cancel this move. I knew this move wasn't going to be needed. I'm actually going to move the Shock Army. The Shock Army can only move 1 hex, even if it's clear weather. You know, you can look at the movement of Shock Army. They only move 1. Doesn't matter what the weather is. So they have extra firepower with all that extra artillery, but they move really slow. So I don't want this unit to lag behind. So this unit, I'm definitely going to move via rail. And I'm actually going to move it towards Stalingrad. Where should I put it in Stalingrad? That's a great question. I think it's going to be, it may be our strategic rear. I might just put it there. Yeah. So 3 strategic rail moves in total. It's going to be our rear guard unit right there, trying to protect Stalingrad as best we can. Also going to be cautious with whatever the Germans try to do as far as like doing any sneaky flank maneuvers around Stalingrad, which has happened to me before. The next move to do is get these infantry on the march. And I'm going to try to get these units to march to Stalingrad. The only problem I'm seeing right now, first of all, I can only move 1 unit at a time. Let's start with that. That's the first problem. The second problem is that this unit is not fast enough to get to Stalingrad. It won't, even with a blitz, it's not fast enough. So I think what I'm going to do is get this unit to move via rail as well. So that means I'm canceling the movement of also this northern unit. It's not really necessary. I can make do without moving it. Get this guy to move via rail as well. This is the 6th Army, not the German 6th Army, the Soviet 6th Army. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to Stalingrad right there. There we go. And at least we have 2 armies in the vicinity of Stalingrad. Plus we have this HQ also in that vicinity as well. I'm actually going to move this HQ a little further. Let's put it there. You know, just so that these rail lines are in supplies, especially this rail junction. You never know if the Soviets are going to, or if the Germans are going to try some sort of flanking maneuver around Stalingrad. It is possible. So I just want to be cautious of that. So that's it for, yeah, that's it for that. And then I'm still blitzing with this HQ, right? So that was 4 supreme moves, and then the other 2 were right there, right? Okay. That's as good as it's going to get for the Soviets, quite frankly. I got to remember that I still have some pursuit fire coming out of this area, east of Sumy, northwest of Kharkov. Also, do I want to pull a unit out of Bryansk? Not yet. I kind of want to hold on to Bryansk as long as I can. And given the success we had on the last turn, let's just try to keep that defense going. Although, quite frankly, we could use more armies. We just don't have many Soviet armies in the sector. You know, I got the 24th, the 20th at Voronezh, the 8th at Orel. This 4th one is also, you know, may just be destroyed as it retreats. As much as I want to fortify Bryansk, I have reason to think that we have no choice but to abandon it. I think I have no choice but to abandon Bryansk as it currently stands. And I think I'm just going to need to accept the fact that I got to have some sort of reserve, second defensive strategic alliance somewhere along the front. I need to have guarantees, because if these 2 units are destroyed in the withdrawal, it's going to leave a gaping hole in the front line, which is absolutely unacceptable for the Soviets. Yeah. It's just going to create a whole world of hurt. Actually, this 10th Corps, no, I mean, I don't think, I've seen in 1941, we've learned that having two Soviet units stacked up is not enough to stop a German breakthrough. We don't know what, presumably we don't know what other German Supreme HQs are in the sector. So if they have, well, actually, no, that's Army Group Center was here. For all I know, they transferred Army Group North HQ away. I mean, they may have another HQ. The point I'm trying to make is that if I can't guarantee a defensive 1 hex, then might as well create a double defense in depth. And there's pros and cons to that. But the cons are that the Germans can, in theory, break through both defensive lines. But I also know that if they blitz, that's as far as they're going to be able to go. So that's that. But this 24th Army could use some mech support for sure. Without it, it will be in serious trouble. But no, we're going to make do with what we have. Yeah. Then I'm just going to deactivate the Western HQ. And I'm going to mobilize it. I think put it somewhere near the front, but not too close. I think Tula is our safest bet because, you know, it's in proximity of all the other formations. Right? I have this Baltic HQ that can also support that. Hopefully I may be able to use it to pull out the units from Smolensk. But that's all we got for this turn. Pretty interesting moves by the Soviets, though, I have to say. But the very interesting moves by the Soviets. But it's clear that our situation right now is very tenuous. We're not really going to be able to hold this area much longer. So anyways, that's that. We're going to deactivate Stavka. And then we'll go ahead and do the blitz phase for the Ukrainian HQ. And again, the reason why I'm blitzing is because I'm trying to liquidate this pocket, right? Trying to liquidate it. Try to get as many Soviet units as I can out of the pocket before the noose tightens. Had Rostov been pinned down, these units would have been stuck and they would have not been able to pull out. We still have a chance to pull out. So I'm sure Adolf Hitler is right now super furious that the Soviet pocket has escaped. But they still achieved a lot of successes elsewhere. So let's do the pursuit fire. We have the 4th Army withdrawing from Sumy. The pursuers have equal speed at single fire. And yeah, they completely wipe out the 4th Army. Maybe I should have left it behind as a rear guard, but I figured, there's no point. It's going to get encircled anyways. We have this mech corps that's pulling out. The only unit that actually has equal speed is the 2 German panzer divisions here. So they're the only ones that can pursue at single fire. They also score a hit, and they also neutralize the last remaining Soviet mech corps there. So this is why I had abandoned Bryansk, because otherwise we would have had nothing defending that sector there. Okay, so that's that. So not a great withdrawal for the Soviets, but at least we've been able to somewhat establish a new defensive line somewhere, at least a continuous defensive line, right? And then we have kind of a secondary strategic and even a tertiary strategic defensive line to protect Moscow. So that's not bad. We also have a defense at Stalingrad, only 1 army defending Stalingrad, but it's better than nothing. And then now we'll do the blitz phase for the Ukrainian HQ. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out the 26th Army. I'm going to leave it at Rostov. You know what? I just realized I may have done a very silly mistake with the Soviets. I just realized we could have had a full defensive line along the Don River. And instead, I am withdrawing like a madman back to Stalingrad, right? I think I overcalculated there. I wonder if I want to fix it. I probably normally I think if I was playing myself solo, I would, just so that I keep the game balanced. But I think since we are, I'm playing in front of y'all, right? I'm recording these games, and then also, touch. If you're playing touch-based chess, right? This would be permanent. I'm going to pull back this cavalry unit, but I think what I'm going to do is have it fall back to there. I didn't plan this out very well, didn't I? I think what I'm going to try to do is get this cavalry unit to actually fall back to Krasnodar. And then right in its heels, this Ukrainian HQ will be deactivated. And try to get this Ukrainian HQ to move south. So it's not a good setup. It's a really bad setup right now for the Soviets. I think I spread out my units too thinly. I should have left the shock army in Kotelnikovo, and I would have been able to provide a much stronger line. And then we would have had the entire Don River protected, at least on the southern end. Instead, I have jumped the gun with our retreat. But the good news is that we've at least liquidated the pocket here at Vorshilovgrad. No units have been encircled. But whatever the Germans throw at us next, if they break through at Rostov for whatever reason with another HQ, they could, in theory, still cut us off. And that would be a serious problem, wouldn't it? But anyways, I think that's what we're going to do. This HQ, this Ukrainian HQ, I'm just making it sprint. I wish I could do a C move. Oh, I wonder if I can. I don't think I can, no. It would have been nice to move it to maybe Kerch, but I don't think I can. So that's what we're going to do. Not the best moves for the Soviets, in my opinion, but, it'll do. We also have pursuit fire from Vorshilovgrad with a mech corps. The infantry are too slow, right? Again, all these pursuit rules, by the way, are coming from this pursuit firepower table. Again, equal speeds, single fire. So we'll roll 3 dice, no hits. That's good. And that will sum up the Soviet turn for now. But I jumped the gun with the defense of Stalingrad, I think. We're just going to have to make do. So yeah, that's that. No change in production for this turn. Yeah, no change in production. So now we'll move on to the next fortnight. And now it is the German turn. So we'll now switch back to the Axis. Any moves by the British? No, right? No. We're going to move back. So I definitely jumped the gun with the Soviets there. But moves have been made already. So now Germans have a lot of units here in the center. In fact, the equivalent of essentially 3 armies. They're slow to move, right? They're very slow to move. But these 2 German armies, I'm pretty much technically a 3rd army, the Romanian army. I can pretty much get these units to march forward if I want to activate any other HQs, and just try to have them kind of fill in the gap here that's left over, the vacuum that the Soviets have left over. You can see that the Germans, yes, made progress, but they actually they're actually in pretty good shape. Also, the other thing to point out is that since we pulled out of Volshilograd, this 14th Corps is in supply. All the German units are in supply, by the way, I should point out. But yeah, let's... I'm trying to figure out what the best move is. I say we make an attack on Rostov. Try to take Rostov if we can. The only problem is that if I activate Army Group A and I deploy to Milorovo, it won't be in range to move any of these other additional German units that you see here. None of them will be able to move, which is a bummer. So I think I may even pass with the Germans for this fortnight. I think we should activate Army Group A. I don't know. Maybe I should pass the turn for the German moves, and instead just focus on maybe replacing losses, right? I mean, I know that next turn I'm gonna have to spend 40 on production points just on HQs, right? And that leaves me with another 40 points to build up units. And the question is well, what extra units would I want to build up? You know, I could build up some infantry. Some of these Panzer Corps would be nice, especially the Panzer Corps. You know, some German infantry. Not too much the Germans want to build up. I think I'm going to play it a little bit more conservative than what we saw historically. And I think the Germans are going to do nothing on this turn. Because I don't know. Or I can decide to try to make a northern push. I think I'm going to wait to do a northern push. I'm going to wait for Army Group Center to be built up. Try to make an attack on Smolensk. And then I have to decide, are we going to go for Moscow? I mean, if we go for Moscow, this is the time to do it. Or do I hinge my momentum to the south and try to achieve these other objectives? Again, we still have that option to decide which of the two. Either way, the good news is that we did at least achieve an operational victory, and we did cripple, a lot of Soviet armies, right? And that was really the short-term objective, but the long-term objective is defeat the Soviet Union, right? And what better way to do that than to take Moscow? Taking Moscow would be pretty awesome. But the Soviets have a lot of defensive lines. We made good progress just now, but I don't know if we can keep that momentum going for the rest of the summer. As we can look at the calendar right now, we have 3 months basically of good weather, and I know that our HQs can't keep it up. I know that maybe July, August, we could probably cover the distance to get to Tula. But once we do that, I mean, we then, the summer campaign might be over. We may have 2 more months to try to assault Moscow, but we're going to have to encircle Moscow, right? And it's a very large sector. It's hard to cut off. All I can tell you is that the Soviets are completely confused as to what the German army intent is, right? I mean, they just deployed a bunch of units to Stalingrad. They got units deployed here in Rostov. So this is a good time to decide where do we want to push. I kind of wish Army Group A was actually in Kharkov, because then I could have launched a more linear advance. I think I was a little overly ambitious there with this HQ. A little overly ambitious. So yeah, we do have a concentration of force right now, which is really impressive. I really was impressed by the German attacks this last sequence. Kind of want to do it again, especially given how the Soviets had double defense in a few areas. I feel pretty confident that we could make another push if we wanted to. Also, the attack on Smolensk went really well as well. Maybe I can even blitz on Smolensk right now. I'd rather wait. Maybe we try to launch an attack on Voronezh, right? I mean, we could try to take Voronezh. Maybe try to encircle it, right? We could even try to do a concentrated blitz here, break out on the sector, and then maybe do a flanking maneuver. The only problem is that we won't be able to command all our units. This entire group here, this entire cluster of German units, will not be able to participate on this turn. That's the only thing to keep in mind. But I do have the equivalent of a panzer army that I can use to maybe encircle or pin down Voronezh or something like that. It would further panic the Soviets. I'm not sure. I'll be frank. I'm just really not sure what to do with the German army. Maybe we should stay on task and just keep driving south. Try to take Rostov. That probably, I think the best move would have been if this actual region here would have been cleared out. I think I'm going to pass on this turn. I really do. I really do think I'm going to pass and just focus on production. Focus on building up new units. Yes, it gives the Soviets some respite. It's going to give them time to rebuild and so on. But it's also going to give us time to rebuild our HQs. And that's really what I want to see. I'm not going to go total full out strategic blitz just yet, especially given the limitations of our HQs. And then eventually, what I hope is to get OKW to move into Warsaw, and it's still going to give the Soviets a little bit of uncertainty as far as what should they do to fix their strategic situation, because right now it's not looking great. It's looking pretty bad, if you ask me. So we're going to pass on this turn for now, oddly enough. I know it's a strange move, but I do believe it is indeed the better move. And so with that, we're going to pass for the German army in the summer, which is unheard of, I know, but we're going to pass anyways. And now I can switch over to the Allies and see what they want to do. The British, for example, this would probably be a good time to... I feel pretty confident that we'll get some good production on the next month. I'm hoping. We should be able to at least build up these mech units, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to activate 21st HQ. And then I'm going to get all these other units mobilized. So let's get this armored corps to Alexandria. Get this unit there. Maybe get this other unit there as well. And then 1, 2, 3. And then ideally we can fortify El Alamein. The only problem is that we are very susceptible to a German attack. So we got to be careful with that. We also keep in mind that El Alamein is a major town. According to this, it's not a major city. So we don't have any defensive advantages at Alexandria. The only advantage that we have at El Alamein is that we do have this Katara, which is impassable. So we cannot expect Rommel to do any sort of flanking maneuver from that area. But I'm not really too worried about that right now. I'm just worried about, the Axis having some sort of nasty breakthrough, in this area here at Alexandria if they break through. My focus is making sure I have a concentration of force established there. That's my main focus. So yeah, we're going to leave it at that. And then just deactivate this HQ. And I think we're just going to leave it in the Delta. I mean, that's probably the best place to put it. And then that's it for the British. No additional supreme moves. And then we can do the Soviets, right? What can I do with the Soviets? What adjustments I want to do? I would argue that fortifying Smolensk is still in our best interest. Yeah, maybe we should try to fortify Smolensk a bit more if we can. But I'm going to have to activate yet another HQ to do that. And if I were the Soviets, well, let's do the supplies. This unit is clearly out of supplies. It's totally surrounded. I could just pass for the Soviets as well, and then focus all my production, rather than on activating this HQ and having it get under strength, to instead start building up a new defensive echelon somewhere, and just focus on not on HQs, but rather on ground units. And plus, I don't want this HQ to be under strength. I want to maintain it at a level 3 at all costs. So I definitely don't want to use that. I could use Stavka though, but it would be so early in the campaign for it to be only at level 2, right? Or level 1. The only other thing I can think about doing right now is maybe activating this southern HQ and seeing if I can close the gap over here. I still can't. The shock army is too slow. But the 6th Army could probably move to the Don. Yeah. I think we're going to just leave it as it is for now. Pass for the Soviets as well. And I think that's it for this turn, folks. We're going to stop here. I'm going to end the log file. But the German army definitely achieved a really nice breakthrough. Super nice breakthrough here in the southern sector of the front. They wiped out a bunch of Soviet units, right? The real question is how will the Soviets respond? I think the answer is obvious. They're going to rebuild their lost units as quickly as possible. But yes, the Soviet Union is clearly in survival mode for the remainder of summer 1942. And we just have to keep on holding out until something gives, for the Axis. Either they can't keep attacking, or their attention is focused elsewhere. But likewise, the British are also doing what they can to mount a defense here in Alexandria. And that's really going to sum up the turn. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly had fun making it. And I will see y'all in the next video. Peace out.